Honorable Prime Minister, the Honorable Dr. Terrance Drew, members of the media, Mrs. Lanicia Collins-Williams, our sign language interpreter, and all our viewers and listeners. Good afternoon, good morning, and welcome to this another edition of the Roundtable. I am Javon Liebert. The Roundtable series forms part of the government's ongoing efforts to keep the public informed and engaged with matters of national importance. The Roundtable presents an opportunity for the media to engage the Prime Minister on government projects and matters, issues and concerns in their quest to properly report and provide updates to the general public. Specifically, we are joined here today by representatives from SKNIS, Sherima Matthew, ZIZ, Devon Cornelius, SKN Source, Ebony Brandon, Sugar City FM, Ralston Ranking, and SKN Newsline, Mr. Glenn Batt. I ask that you please ensure that your phones are on silent as a show of respect and to not interrupt the discussions that will ensue. At this point, I will turn the mic over to the Honorable Prime Minister to give his opening statement, following which we will open the floor for questions from the media and comments or discussion. Thanks for being here and thanks for tuning in. Prime Minister.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Mr. Javon Liebert, Press Secretary, and thanks to the media for being here this morning. And good morning to all who are listening by way of whatever medium. I want to thank you very much for tuning in to this most important conversation that is to be had around the round table today. Let me start by saying it's always a pleasure to sit down with the media and have an open and frank conversation about critical and pertinent matters of national interest. Let me also say to those who are listening or have logged on via various platforms, thank you for joining us today as we, your government, continue to power progress, working diligently to build a resilient future for you, your families, our communities, and our country. In the past 2 years, your government has embarked on an ambitious yet essential transformation to diversify and secure the future of our economy. Recognizing the vulnerabilities inherent in over-reliance on any one sector, we made a bold decision to transition from the Citizenship by Investment Program to the Sustainable Economic Expansion and Diversification Initiative, better known as SEED. This shift represents more than just policy. It is a declaration of our commitment to long-term stability and resilience by channeling investments in areas like renewable energy, agriculture, and tourism. We are laying a foundation for an economy that benefits every citizen, not just today, but for generations to come. Our tourism sector continues to thrive as we elevate St. Kitts and Nevis as a premier destination for visitors from around the globe. From improved infrastructure to the promotion of our unique cultural heritage, these efforts are bearing fruits, creating jobs and strengthening our position on the world stage. Similarly, our agricultural development programs are not just about producing more, but about producing smarter. Initiatives such as the groundbreaking partnership with Tabasco are evidence of how we are innovating to create opportunities for our farmers and reduce our dependence on imports. In healthcare, we have demonstrated our unwavering commitment to the well-being of our people. Investments in facilities, technology, and services are ensuring that every citizen, regardless of circumstance, has access to the care they need. At the same time, we are addressing critical infrastructure challenges, such as water scarcity, to make us more secure, with targeted projects to enhance distribution and ensure access for all. Renewable energy remains a key priority as we move closer to energy independence through initiatives like geothermal energy development, a project that will not only transform our energy landscape, but also position us as a leader in sustainability within the region. Our focus has also been on empowering people directly. In the span of 2 years, we have implemented measures that uplift families and individuals across the Federation. Dividends from the CBI program have been distributed to citizens, providing tangible benefits from national revenues, first time in history. Through the Independence Reset Program, we have extended critical financial relief measures to those most in need. We have raised the minimum wage to one of the highest in the region, increased civil servant salaries, and enhanced social security benefits, all of which contribute to a higher standard of living for our people. These measures are not just policies, they are commitments and promises fulfilled. And let me also add that we brought on board for the first time pension for GAE workers. One of our most significant achievements is the launch of the Aspire program. With this initiative, we are planting the seeds of financial literacy and empowerment in the hearts and minds of our youth. By providing structured savings and investment opportunities for children aged 5 to 18, we are preparing the next generation to not only dream of success, but to achieve it. These accomplishments remind us of one undeniable truth. This is a government that delivers. In just 2 years, we have passed groundbreaking regulations, launched transformative programs, and implemented impactful projects, all designed to uplift our people and advance our nation. Our progress is not just a story to be told, it is a record to be shared. This is why we have made it easier than ever before for our citizens to access information about our initiatives on our official website, gov.kn. Transparency is not just a principle we hold, it is a practice we live by, ensuring that our people can see in real time the strides we are making together. As a people, let us pause and reflect on how far we have come and recommit ourselves to the work that lies ahead. Ours is a journey of progress, powered by vision and action, grounded in the belief that every citizen of St. Kitts and Nevis deserves the best this nation can offer. Together, we are building a future that is resilient, inclusive, and prosperous for all. Thank you very much. That was my opening statement. And of course, we can go into further discussions as we see fit on a number of key and important points.
Good morning, Prime Minister.
Good morning. Yes.
Glenn Barr from SKN News 9. Prime Minister, there is a podcast that has been widely circulating,
Yes.
hosted by Mr. Philippe Martinez.
Uh-huh.
And you are aware, of course, that of all the allegations and lawsuits and so forth that he has brought. However, he has basically alleged that you were not truthful in regards to the possession of citizenship under the prison project. And he has said that you have actually signed most of the applications coming under that particular project, which he also alleges were being processed at fees that were under the legal limit. So I would like you to respond to that. And then secondly, in relation to that same project, can you simply give us what is the current status of that project and the players who are involved?
Okay, good. Thank you very much, Mr. Bad, for that excellent question right out of the block. Let me say something. Let me ask you a question, Mr. Bad. Do you know who Mr. Martinez is? Right. Okay. All right. You know of him? Okay. And I assume you have never spoken to him? Okay. All right. So I think because you asked so much about MSR and the CBI program, I think it's important that we see who we are talking about and dealing with. So I will give a chronology of the whole thing and answer your questions in the process. I think your questions are important. Right. So I when we met Mr. Martinez, when we got into office, he was already part of the CBI program. Mr. Martinez, with MSR, was admitted to the program in May of 2022. You'll be fully aware that I was not the Prime Minister at that particular time. It was another Prime Minister who admitted Mr. Martinez into our CBI program. What we did not know, we thought there's a process that anybody who is admitted into the CBI program, they have to go through a due diligence process. I would have thought, as everybody would have thought, that Mr. Martinez, the MSR gentleman, would have gone through that process as well. And so he was part of the program, and I related to everybody who were part of the program. However, we have a process where we will also do other types of due diligence. And so when we do our other due diligence, we discovered a checkered past for the MSR gentleman. A checkered past that showed from our information that he was convicted for fraud. And I want to read it to you because it's critically important. Because it goes to the crux of the matter of what I would discuss and some of these things. So I will read it for you. Just bear with me a bit. All right. So let's delve into it a little bit. So a report was done, and the report provides a comprehensive analysis of who this gentleman is, his career, his activities, and particularly focusing on certain areas, especially in St. Kitts and Nevis. The report delves into dealings in St. Kitts and Nevis. The report introduces dealings in initial attempts in establishing what I would say opportunities in the Caribbean. And I will read this part for you as we go. Mr. Martinez is a French film producer, director, screenwriter, and actor with a career that spans some decades. And it goes through his biography. And in that, we have it here, that Mr. Martinez was convicted of fraud. And I want to stress that. He was convicted of fraud in a landmark case where he was sentenced to 5 years in prison. According to our report, he stayed a number of those years in the United States of America and then went to Europe, where he spent 6 years in jail. Mr. Barrett, I would ask you, and you would know, that based on our standards in St. Kitts and Nevis, if a man or woman commits any type of offense, fraud, which is significant, he or she is barred from certain jobs. And in our CBI program, when this is discovered, this is grounds to take serious action. So the question becomes, and it's perplexing, how is it the Harris administration did not know that? Why was our country exposed is the question that we had to ask. And so after I better understood, and we understood, we distanced ourselves from him because of this past. And I will never risk the integrity of our country or the PM's office or the CBI program with such a character. It's a serious matter. The MSR gentleman has made repeated statements in various media, including on programming that he himself produced which are misleading at best and in some instances flatly untrue. We're dealing with somebody who is convicted of fraud and spent jail time for fraud, who should not be in our program in the first place. Subsequently, in dealing with him, and I will go on, the gentleman is faced with strong defenses and motions of his various claims. Because of these things, in our estimation, he has become desperate. Subsequently, one of the persons in the videos that he have, and I want you to listen to this, approached the government. And one of the things that was said to me and to the government was if we wanted this to go away, we need to pay 40 to 100 million US dollars in my office. How can a man enter in my office saying to me that I have to take 40 to 100 million dollars out of the government's treasury to settle this case that a fraudster has brought forward, who should not have been in the first place? That is why I ask, have this been researched? Have the media done its job? This is who he is. And therefore, the question is perplexing. How did he get into the program under Timothy Harris? How did he get in the program in May 2022? 40 million US dollars, 40 to 100 million US dollars from the Treasury to settle this. Settle what? The government is not in any case anywhere. That's the people's money. 40 million US dollars is 10% of the budget, roughly. Well, I'll say maybe 50%. I mean 5% rather. And because 100 million, well, if you go to EC, 100 million EC, roughly. So that's about 10% of the budget. If you go to 100 million US dollars, that is approaching a quarter of our annual budget. So I said, how can you show up and say that if we want this to go away, we have to come up with 40 to 100 million US dollars? I'll go on, Mr. Bad. This gentleman has paid surrogates within the media, podcasts, all over. He does not care about the people of St. Kitts and Nevis. As is obvious, he cares about himself and what he perceives he can get. Because the question becomes, if you care about St. Kitts and Nevis, why are you attempting to extort tens of millions of US dollars from the people of St. Kitts and Nevis through the Treasury? Why is the question? And so, I'm answering your question in there. The only concern is to line their own pockets at the expense of you, the people of St. Kitts and Nevis. And I will not allow that, because I am not in any corruption. Any suggestion by my administration is blind or even insensitive to past issues with the CBI program is blatantly false. I will say that. But this is a question. Timothy Harris brought this fraudster into our CBI. But it will be my administration, Mr. Bad, that properly deals with him in accordance with our laws. There are people who can't get jobs in the civil service because of the past criminal record. But how did we accept this man with this severely tarred criminal record to be entered into our CBI program? Any accusation that this administration has been complicit in wrongdoing is not just false, it's absurd. We are the ones, and you were here from day one. I said that this is the most difficult thing that I would have to deal with, but I will take the necessary measures, and there will be tough measures to take. I said that. We are the ones who 2 years ago made underselling a criminal offense. We are the only country that has made underselling a criminal offense. You wouldn't just get tap on your wrist and say, bring back. No, we are saying if you do that, you will have a record that reflects that you were involved in fraudulent activities. We are the only one who has introduced that. And so to suggest that we have not taken measures to deal with any perceived action of underselling, that we are not taking it seriously, that affected us, I would say. And so therefore, I want to say clearly a number of things that you have asked about so that we can be clear. One, this gentleman, from our research, showed that he has a tad pass, convicted of fraud, with a sentence of 5 years, for which he served about 6 months. Should have never been accepted in our program in the first place. How did he get through to our program if due diligence was being done under the previous administration? Not on applicants, but on those who want to do projects. Even they should go through a process. So the question I asked, did he go through the process in May of 2022? Did he go through the process? Because had he gone through the process, he would not have entered the program. Had I not done what you call, had we not done what we call the continued due diligence, we would not have discovered him. And so when I discover somebody with this, my office will distance myself, because this is not a citizen who can reach out to me as their prime minister. This is an investor whose checkered past was not presented, otherwise he would have been stopped. But the question becomes, it's perplexing. How did he get through without this being noticed? And so, Mr. Bat, that is where we are with respect to that. So they need to tell the people how this happened. They need to tell the people why measures weren't taken to protect the CBI program. And I would not allow a fraudster to drag my name. He's out of order. Mr. Bat, let me just finish. We will, and therefore, I would leave that. So you can be sure that this administration will not be improperly pressured by questionable actors, wherever they might be. And I can clearly say that the CBI program under this administration has benefited the people directly. I want to make this point because I keep making the point that the program had become the mainstay of our current budget, meaning that 60 to 70% of what we pay for came from the CBI program. So when you hear talks of this, where's the money and so forth, I can speak for my administration. Let me tell you where the money went. Infrastructure, water and electricity, social programs such as STEP, etc. This costing the government over $70 million per year. Subsidies on gas, electricity, water, cooking gas and food. Making payments to Development Bank and Social Security, millions of dollars to save them. Payments of previous CBI dividend. For the first time, CBI dividend were paid by this administration. And hundreds of millions of dollars. And we're working to save money in our sovereign wealth fund. But that is under stress because of the measures we took with the CBI. And we had a drop, which I explained to the people. So the question becomes, and it's easy, I have told you, let the previous administration tell you what they did with the money. Because we are trailing the money, and there's a lot of it to be accounted for. And I must say clearly, Mr. Bat, I have no accounts in the US, so they can search from now till next year. They will not find me. But the reason why I'm so hard on this is because it's not only me. This action is seeking to tar the good name of St. Kitts and Nevis. don't care about our country, care about themselves. And I will not be, and this country under me will not be extorted because, again, it's the people's money. So when you talk about underselling, the only government that has taken measures to make sure that that does not take place, and if it takes place, to put people through the ringer, is this government. And I said in my address in the past that the DPP now has purview over this. It's like you are here. If somebody comes to me as the Prime Minister and say, Prime Minister, somebody take up the phone. I am not the investigator. I am not the police. I'll say the police and the DPP, you need to look into and see if there was some crime committed and take the measures. There's something called due process, and we are a country of laws that go through the process of due process. Everybody deserves due process. Everybody, whether you agree with them or not. Even investors, they themselves deserve due process. The other question becomes, in terms of the CBI numbers, they gave Galaxy the number that Galaxy had, that I have spoken of. The persons made their application, I took over. What is critical for me is to make sure that the due diligence is done and the amount that the government is supposed to receive is received, and anybody who otherwise sell the citizenship or apply for citizenship and pay for it below the cost, that I put the law in place for the DPP to investigate them and pursue them and charge them. So it answers the multiple questions you have asked. So when you come into a program, even if he was there and he had his, and his application gone through the process, I, as the Prime Minister, would have signed as well. And that is why his was signed off under us until we uncover what had took place. And I had to distance myself. So I want to say again that the DPP has been empowered with the law, and all information to deal with it will be submitted to be investigated. And we are the only country that would investigate underselling and prosecute it. And this is not just words. Our laws are there. The DPP office is there. The AG's office is there. Remember again, I started on a course to make the most significant changes in the CBI program to save the CBI program. Because had we not done that, we would have lost our visa-free access and therefore the program in general. So my first action was to save the program and make sure that the program can stand up to any scrutiny. And of course, as you make changes and implement them, things are not going to happen overnight, but we are moving as quickly as we can. And it's clear to see that St. Kitts and Nevis has moved the quickest in the region in terms of these strong measures to protect our program, to the point where we were strong advocates for a regional regulatory system so that one country wouldn't be pitched to another and another country being forced to lower the price in order to stay in the market. But all of us come to a minimum that you can sell at. And when we are there, nobody can force any country to drive down their price in order to get their citizenship moved in the market. So we have ended that. And that is one of the best measures to end underselling, if it is perceived. And not only that, we carried our price up to the highest, because when we came in, the price was much lower. And we said we are going to carry up the price to make sure that we can, in a sense, manage how much we offer, but be able to maintain revenues. That, of course, other countries chose to go much lower, which, in a sense, undercut us. But at the end, we were able to come to a discussion and set that minimum price. So when you're talking about underselling, it is sometimes another country that goes below to undercut you. So they would sell and you would not be able to get into the market. And so another country will say, well, I go in lower too. You understand this? And you know, if you're there selling banana and you're there, he's banana for 10 cents and you also 5, they ain't buying from you. But him, he said for 5, you're going to 4. And then before you know it for 3, and before you know it, they're down to 1, and before you know it, each of you selling your bananas for nothing. But we decide we're going to come to a minimum price so that all countries in the region can be at a minimum price so that there's no undercutting or nothing that can promote underselling. So we promoted that. We took the toughest measures we took the toughest laws. So this talk about not doing is really holds no water. And I stand on that record because it is there to show, Mr. Bad.
Prime Minister, just to follow up on this matter, what is not clear then is what has become of this prison project in reality? And he also made some allegations with regards to, I use his words, fake due diligence company.
So let me allow other people to ask, but I'll answer that one with the prison project. As you know, we paused the prison project to do an inventory and to review the prison project. We did that. Because in the contract, remember that the prison project was, when was it sanctioned? Again, under Timothy Harris government. They sanctioned this. We came in, heard of everything, we paused it and said, let's look at this, because a contract had been signed. Not only that, the cabinet had agreed to the program. So it binds the government to some extent. And so we say, let us pause and take a look at what's happening here. What can we do to make sure we safeguard everything? So where we are with it, we had paused it to look at it. However, in the contract, it says that a prison must be built. That means money was collected to build the prison. So then in speaking to the legal people, if you promise the country this, and this was offered, and money was had, then that money should go to where it says it should go, and then being advised legally so that the country can get their set for what that was done for. I'm going to be advised on that. So we are looking at it to make the final determination now that we have seen the whole picture, but to make sure that the country is not robbed of what was agreed to. So I will say that. Good. Secondly, you talk about these fraudulent due diligence. If you look at why saying it's a Nevis was what number one was because of our due diligence. Again, we introduced for the first time in the CBI program the concept of continuous due diligence. What does that mean? We need to check you and check you repeatedly because people can get through and you can miss, but that's why we say continued. Just like this gentleman got through and possibly, I don't know if he was missed, but he got through. But because we had a next due diligence, we discovered. So anybody out there who is not following the rules and regulation, we will make sure that we continue to check to see if they are meeting the standards. And where it is found that the standards was not kept, measures will be taken to ensure that the standards are in place, are upkept. That is what we are simply saying. So if you have a company out there that you said that this is so, our DPP office will act on it, the unit will act on it, this government will act on it. That is why we have something called continued due diligence. We introduce the concept and we ask the other countries to take it on board so that if somebody comes through, it doesn't mean that you are forgotten. It means that you have to be continuously be looked at. So we call it that. So we can do that for due diligence companies and also for individuals. Again, these things came in under who? We met these things in place. We are just seeking to clean up these things. We met these things in place. The Galaxy Agreement in place. Call it AIO, a special project. MSR Media in place. We met all of this. The lower price in place. We increased the price. No continuous due diligence. We put that in place. No laws to convict people if they try to scheme the system by underselling. We put that in place. And how long have we been in Mr. Bad? A relatively very short time, just over 2 years. And we have done all of that for a program that had been running since the 1980s. And we have done that. Look at from the 1980s to now, maybe 40 years. And in 2 years, we have made those significant changes to strengthen the integrity of the program. And so I will say to you that I stand on our actions and what we have done. And we'll continuously work with our international partners who we are working with. We'll work with our regional partners as we are now moving in place to put our regional regulatory body so that we can continue to strengthen the program as we go. As with anything else, you need to continuously work on it to make it better and better. But our record speaks for itself, Mr. Bat.
Good morning, Prime Minister. You recently traveled to Florida as part of a delegation with the Honorable Minister of Tourism, Marsha Henderson. Yes. Can you give us an update as to what you would have accomplished or the team would have accomplished during those meetings? I know you all would have met with a cruise team. And on the topic of cruise tourism, during a recent tourism press conference, it was announced that St. Kitts is poised to welcome its 1 million cruise passengers for this cruise season. What steps are being taken to ensure that we as a nation not only maintain those impressive figures, but to surpass it in years to come?
Thank you very much. Critical question. Tourism, is the lifeline of St. Kitts and Nevis, and we are seeking to diversify the economy and diversify tourism, the product in itself. I want to thank the Honorable Marsha Henderson and her excellent team for the tremendous work that they have been doing. We now have above 1 million generically, and that has been achieved through hard work, strategic planning, and collaboration. We visited Royal Caribbean, the second largest cruise line in the world, but our most important in terms of the number. They're our largest, the largest company that comes to St. Kitts. And therefore, we want to thank them for the tremendous collaboration. In those meetings that we held, I was in those meetings and made presentations and really discussed how we are going to make the tourism product in St. Kitts better. One, more offerings. We want more offerings. We want the proceeds from tourism to trickle down into the various communities. So we discussed getting insurance coverage for the smaller operators, so the smaller operators can also advertise on board so that they can get tours as well. That's a significant step forward we want to make, and the tour and the cruise lines are very, very interested in this one. We spoke about training, so collaborating with Clarence Fitzroy, Bryan College. We also spoke about opportunities to work and in various at various levels within the organization. We talk about also greening in the sense that renewable energy, so that when they come in, we can have onshore power, which means they can shut their engine off and they can plug into our system, and our system to be powered by renewable energy. So that in a sense would help. And basically to collaborate on any other issues. Let's say a cruise liner were to come and they suffer an emergency issue that they might need some time to resolve. We want to step in and say, for the time being, we can help you. Not that it would be continuous in a sense, but we can step in to help so that the cruise liner does not stop coming to St. Kitts and Nevis or any other part. So we tell them we want to partner with you so that we can work together so that all can benefit. I also visited Norwegian. As you know, Norwegian is smaller, but in recent time, I think they have the most ships being built right now. And Norwegian has been a valued partner. They told me they'll be going back to Nevis, Cornelius. They'll be heading back to Nevis. And, Norwegian maybe sometimes have the smaller ships, but the clientele, is very valued. And they want to expand here in St. Kitts and Nevis as well. And so in speaking to speaking to those who are the leaders in this cruise industry, and we had Carnival who was here recently, so we have met with Carnival, Royal, and Norwegian, and we intend to meet with all, but those are our leading companies that do business here in St. Kitts and Nevis, that we are very, very happy with the outcome, the outcomes of those various meetings. Things look up for St. Kitts and Nevis as we move to reposition ourselves as a leading destination within the Caribbean. So I would say very positive and very, very successful. And what I explained, there are opportunities for expansion so that we can continue to grow here in the Caribbean, but specifically St. Kitts and Nevis.
Good morning, Devon Cornelius, ZIZ. I wanted to go back to some of the questions that Mr. Bart asked earlier as it relates to the allegations that were made by Mr. Martinez. And I have just two questions. Who invited Martinez to St. Kitts and Nevis, and who will be held responsible for him reportedly not going through the due diligence process?
Right. Good. Those are very good questions. Initially, Martinez was invited to Nevis, where he partnered over there in the movie industry. So he was initially invited to Nevis from our report. And I don't know the Nevis process. However, he then came over to St. Kitts in 2022 to be a part of the CBI program. And on various levels, when you meet investors, when you make that final deal, you will have a due diligence reporter process that would determine whether the deal goes through or not. Because I see investors all the time. And I always say to investors, before we sign off on anything with the country, one of the things that must be done is a due diligence on who the investor is. And based on the report of that due diligence, it determines whether something is done or not. In this case, with a due diligence like this, you would have said no. Because anybody convicted for fraud and serve jail time for fraud, that's not the type of person you want in your jurisdiction, unfortunately. Because it can lead to unsavory things like what we are experiencing now. A gentleman who wants to throw the whole country under the bus. I have to stand up for this country. You can't extort all this money from the treasury. I would have to come to the people and say, this is what is being put. How can you hide that? 10% of your budget at the lower end, 25% of your budget on the higher end. You can't get away with that. So to answer your question, the due diligence process, and when he comes through the CBI, there should have been a due diligence process even there. Because now you're having access to our patrimony in a sense. And it's perplexing, very perplexing, that due diligence was not sanctioned.
Prime Minister and colleagues, good morning. I have a couple of questions to ask with relation to media appearance you made over the weekend, which has stirred up some controversy, and I would hope that you can provide some clarification. It was with respect to the 8% increase in January. The host of the program that you appeared on, Inside the News, I believe is the name of it, suggested that over a 12-month period, and his math is not fundamentally incorrect, that it would amount to an entire month's salary. I think the issue came in where he tied that to a double salary, and that caused some confusion, which was exacerbated by an article which followed. And in my opinion, having practiced for a quarter of a century, was mischievous and inappropriately written. Coming out of that, I would like for you to do a couple of things for me, please, to clarify what that conversation meant, because it was misrepresented. What is the government's position on this in respect of, is the 8% a replacement for a double salary? The other thing out of that article in particular was the insinuation that somehow that the double salary was something that the government is obliged to do. It was introduced in the 80s based on my research, and it has never been paid in a year when an increase was given. That was not stated in the article either. So can you provide some clarity around those issues?
Yes. Thank you very much. And I want to first say that in the conversation on Win FM, the host presented a position that 8% can amount to an extra salary. It wasn't me who came up with that. It was the host. So I want to just clear that up. Okay? And he did his maths, and he has a right to do his maths, right? However, I want to say clearly that giving an increase does not mean that an extra salary will not be given. You made the point that normally when you give an increase in a particular year, that same year you don't give an extra salary because, of course, you have to make sure you balance things, right? Which you get an increase, so, it would, but it does not mean that you're not going to get double salaries or extra salaries or, a bonus. Exactly. So if one thing does not rule out the other. They're two different scenarios completely. So I just want to make that clear. So it is not that this would ever replace going forward at any time the concept of a bonus. They're two different things. And so I want to put that out and to look at the history that you look at. And so I want to just leave it there. I don't want to say anything else around it except to say, one, it is the host who raised it. Two, you getting an increase does not affect in other years you getting a bonus. So it's not a replacement per se. It is just that when an increase is given, that same year, in practice, a double salary is not given because, you have to balance things. And so therefore, I would leave it there in simple terms.
Mr. PM, good morning. Ralston Rankin, Sugar City FM. I would say, within the last 24 hours, we've been getting a lot of calls and texts, and pretty much all of it is pertaining to Mr. Martinez. And you mentioned a few things. You mentioned the past administration dropped the ball on, the due diligence.
Yes.
Now, would you say your administration pretty much did the same before going into business with Mr. Martinez in the case of the benefactor for the CBI program? That was your administration that appointed him. And the 1,200 passport units as well. So when did you realize that, you guys, or don't let me say you guys, I'm using the right term, your administration decided to do a screening process of Mr. Martinez? Is it within the last 24 hours when this whole situation broke, or I don't know if you realize, but the former Prime Minister, in his recent press conferences, he made mention a couple times of that same issue that you made, right? So
the Prime Minister, and he's coming in a press conference to say that he has now discovered this.
Okay, so I understand. So now, by him making mention of that, I would assume that you probably would have been aware of that. But, the fact that Mr. Martinez was still appointed as the benefactor for the CBI program, that plays a part on your administration. Could you respond to that?
Good. So let me respond to that. First of all, as I said, it comes into the program, there's a process. Once you go through the process, a due diligence is done. And I admit that you would think that the due diligence should have been done how it should have been done. But that is why we have a process called continued due diligence. That if I miss you on the first go, I'm not going to miss you on the second and third go, because I'm constantly checking you. And that is why we were able to discover a number of things, including what is being spoken of here. I'm not going to wait until I'm out of office to say it, because I have a responsibility that while I'm in office, I have to be prudent. Things can be missed, but that is why I keep saying, Rankin, if you miss it, that is why we put that. That is why I'm saying they're disingenuous when they want to put these things at our feet, because we introduce that continuous due diligence process so that we can come back and check you again. And when we discover that you are not what you were initially thought to be, we will take measures in the sense that the law will carry out its action, because we believe in due process. So in a sense, when that is discovered, then actions with the law will have to be taken. And that's it. Because, for example, there might be a citizen or somebody who comes in and do business last 4 or 5 years. That person might have been genuinely clean, but you're still doing business with them. 4 years now, they might have gotten involved in some illegal action. If you are not continuously updating and checking, you'll be continuously doing business with somebody who might have been cleared initially, but later develop a background check that is not really, that is so tad that you have to take measures. And then at the point you say, well, you're coming, we deal with you, but based on our process, we back check again, and we realize we have an issue here, and now we have to take measures. So that is what happened as well. Yes.
Or your administration screen him properly before making him the benefactor?
Remember I said he was in this program already.
So he was already as a benefactor in the program?
Yes, he was
so,
in the program.
So he was a benefactor under the previous administration and not yours. You didn't make him the...
In May 2022, he became a member of the program.
Right.
So he's in the program.
Okay.
So in the program, you might have whatever is happening in the program.
What about the 1,200 units that was issued to him through his MSR?
Right. So what you will do, if you expand your investment, then we can expand that for you as well.
Your administration was the one that issued that 1,200?
No, not, he had 500.
He had 500 from Freebury.
And he expanded his
so he got an extra 700 from
Correct.
you.
Yes.
But my thing is, when did you realize?
But when we did the follow-up due diligence, we recognized. Because if you're in the program, you're in the program, but you go through the checks. So let's say you come into the program, and when we do our continued diligence, you might be there for 2-3 years. Okay, we check you, or we think, because this should have been really, this is a mess. You 2-3 years, we check you, you do your business. Okay, good. You know, you're not. You come to the end of the 3 years, you're still doing business. We check you again. We check you again. You know, you're in there doing business, we check you again. Not that if you're in here doing business and you change from this to this, you have to be checked because we just had a check on you, right? So we check you at the appropriate, and then we check you again. Then we check you again, unless something blatantly comes up, but we're going to check you accordingly. So if somebody come in to build a hotel, and you clear them, and they say, okay, I'm building my hotel, but I'm going to add some cars to it. You're not going to check them because you add some cars.
Will your administration take any action against Mr. Martinez for the podcast, for all that he said? Because he said a lot.
Right.
And
Yes.
pretty much
He
it's already gone viral. There was a lot of things he mentioned.
It gone viral. A lot of the things in there.
So will you take
lies.
action against that?
Right. So our lawyers are looking at it, and I will tell Mr. Martinez that I can put my background check up against his any day. And let's see who the people should believe. He has lied a lot. And worst of all, somebody came into my office to shake down the people's treasury. Appalling. To the tune of $40 to $100 million. And the position of this administration, of this government, is no. If there's a court process, let the court take its action. Let the court go through its process.
PM, coming out of the 2025 National Budget Forum last month with public and private sector stakeholders, can you give us an idea of how helpful those discussions and recommendations were in finalizing the national budget? And while we're on the national budget, are there any early indications you can give us in terms of what the people can expect with the upcoming budget?
Excellent. So I want to say, from the discussions, we always want to have these discussions of the public discussing with the government about its programs, policies, and so forth. And out of those discussions, we had we had the central bank, we had the Chamber of Commerce and Industry, we had a student, very enthusiastic student from Fitzroy Bryan College, and a wide array of other persons and government officials. And there we discussed the budget. I was able to share with them the realities of the budget because, again, under the last administration, the budget was relying to the tune of 60 to 70% on the CBI program, which I keep saying it was one of the most horrendous decisions that could have been made in terms of putting a budget forward. You cannot have your budget depending on one sector like that is fragile. Look at what is happening. One man coming for his own gain, he wants the whole country under the bus because you're depending too much on this. This is not oil and gas, really. Oil and gas is in the ground and it belongs to you. And that is the error. So that when we had to make the changes to strengthen the program, and that will drop the inflows because I was determined that we had to preserve the integrity or strengthen the integrity. Once that drops, everything else drops. Because remember again, the CBI program is used to pay infrastructure, water and electricity, social programs such as STEP, gas, electricity, water, development bank, social security payment, development bank eventually lead to social security to secure them again, payment of the dividends, payment of the increase. This CBI program is the program that carries these. And therefore, I want people to know that whatever proceeds we have is not like icing on the cake. It is actually the cake. It is the cake. There's no icing, so you can say you can get this and get that. It is actually paying your police, your teacher, your nurse, the very everyday runnings of the country. The CBI program is paying for that. And that is why we want to go to seed. We want to diversify the economy and quickly get away from depending on just one sector, especially a sector as fragile and unpredictable as a CBI program. So we discussed all of that, and they gave their excellent ideas. Even the young people said they would like to be part of the process of educating people about budget and budgeting and so forth. And I welcome that. We heard from the governor of the central bank. We heard from the Chamber of Commerce and Industry. And so that has helped tremendously in putting the 2025 budget together. Now, what we can expect from it, we're going to see, for example, in the new budget, big projects that are really rolling out. And I will make an announcement on the 3rd of December. So we're going to see a number of projects rolling out, an expansion of industry and renewable energy and more water, more infrastructure, more housing, more projects to impact people's lives, more job opportunities to be had as a result. Really what we want to see from the new budget is the true diversification of the economy.
So while you're on the top of larger projects, can you give us, because it's been quite some time since your last big media appearance, an update on the St. Peter's Main Road and the F.T. Williams Highway project, because a lot of work has been done since.
Right, and the St. Peter's Main Road, I think that's one where Rankin used to ask about a lot. Yeah, but the foundation, we were doing a lot of the groundwork, like the infrastructure underground, all that stuff, the engineering and so forth. And so I told the people a lot of work was going on, but you're not going to see it then, because that is the unseen work in preparation for the seen work, which is the digging up the road, the paving, the roundabout, and so forth. That project is on target. It's going extremely well. The people of St. Peter's are now seeing it come together, and I'm sure they recognize that it was a project, it is a project that is critically important because St. Peter's is the largest area outside of Bastille and is expected to grow tremendously. And so we need a proper road network. Rankin, you're coming from St. Peter's and you see the line of cars. You need the infrastructure to accommodate how large St. Peter's is. So we are on target. Let me say that when the previous government did the road, my argument was then St. Peter's was left out. I even did a video at the road side of St. Peter's and said, get into office. This road will be done almost immediately. And so I'm happy that we're able to deliver that road with roundabouts, sidewalks, covering of the drains. It's a massive project, really for now, but especially for the future because of the expansion that we expect. So that road is going well, I would tell you. Awesome. Because I say I wanted to ask about the road. Oh, okay.
Road, but seeing that I have the mic, let me just, make a mention of my question. Okay, my question is about the St. Peter's Health Center, the one that was being constructed
Mm-hmm.
before you got into office, and then when you got into office, it's kind of stalled on it.
So let me correct you there.
Yeah.
It stalled before I got into
Okay.
office.
Correction.
I
Thank
met
you.
it stopped with grass and the feces of goats and sheep all over.
So thanks for the correction. I appreciate that. Okay, so what plans do you have now to finish that community center which the people is really excited? They were excited, for it, and it still is.
Right.
And seeing that I'm here, I'll just have my second question so the others could get the chance. I don't know if you're aware, but the St. Kitts Brush Factory closed down its doors last Friday. It's closed on the doors last Friday, leaving a lot of persons out of a job. Was the government aware of the factory closing, and did the government try to do anything to prevent that from happening? And does the government have any plans in place to help prevent other factories from doing the same thing, closing down its doors, given the fact that things are kind of extremely rough right now?
I don't know what you mean by extremely rough, right? We'll discuss that. But I will say, with respect to the clinic, I sure if you go to St. Peter's, the old clinic, the present clinic being used, is being repaired. Because my thing is, that building cannot be allowed to become dilapidated and wasted. That is the problem sometimes. Because one new structure is coming, we abandon the structure being used. Just like the JNF. I am not abandoning the JNF. If you go to the JNF, it's the most investments you see in that infrastructure since its construction. We have stopped the leaking of the roof at JNF. JNF was leaking for years, especially under the past administration. Nurses had buckets under the counter. When the rain comes, you run for the bucket. That is what the nurses had to do. And then right after the nurses, then the persons who keep the environment clean come and start mopping up. Oh, you got to push a bed here. Oh, the patient getting wet, push the bed over here. That happened under the last administration. The St. Peter's Health Center dilapidated with no site, with no plans to deal with the old one, even though the new one was under construction. So we have decided to do the present one. And if you go there, you'll see we have done tremendous work. So that even when they move out, that building can be used for something else. Now, by the new health center, and it was stopped before we got into office. There were issues of contracts, or the contract rather, had issues between the contractor and the government, and the program and the building stopped. That's why I told you we met it with grass and goats and and sheep all over, and cattle too. So what we have done, we had to go through a legal process of getting past the contract. So I can say clearly that the AG has wrapped up that. So we have passed it. So now we are going to send out, they're putting the bills of quantities and tell the bidding process so that the health center can restart. But it will not be a health center. It will be a polyclinic. There's a difference. A polyclinic offers more services. It will offer longer hours of operation. It will go into the night. There you'll be able to get your certain injections, your pressure check, your sugar check, treatment if you have asthma, and those type of things. You'll have a pharmacy and those kind of things. So a lot of the things you'll be able to do at the polyclinic in St. Peter's that you would not have to go to the hospital to get. So I can clearly say that we are looking at a better future for healthcare in St. Peter's.
A timeline as to when you might be able to restart the construction?
Yeah, within a couple of months, because we are now going to do the bill of quantities, send back out the bid for the finishing of the health center. Yes, right. The factory question, I had spoken, of course, to them. The factory is going to Mexico. Mexico is attracting businesses like these because it is much cheaper in Mexico. Their minimum wage is very low compared to ours. So the cost for labor over there is much lower. And therefore, and not only that, those who are coming involved, they have part of their factory over there as well. So the operation cost is better for them. So this is in a specific one, which is the brush company. That is what you call a pull factor, and that is going to affect other countries in the Caribbean. Because when you have to pay somebody here minimum wage of $400 and something over in Mexico is probably less than half of that. And therefore, right, so the other factories have a different reality. Each factory is totally different. We have the high-end factories, for example, that produce certain electronics and so forth, gyro and so forth, that think it is very attractive to them because of the workforce, which is a skilled workforce, because these ladies have been in this for a long time and they know it. So that is a different reality. But the brush, which is the brush, is, they get it much cheaper. And so you can't compete, in a sense, with Mexico. Even if you were to try to give all the concessions in the world, you just still can't compete. However, I can say that we are not stopping there because we are bringing Tabasco. And Tabasco is going to be processing, which is going to produce processing jobs for our people. We are also signed off, and I will say, with a company so that they can make all of their wares here, like their plates, their thing to take away the food. I'm going to announce that, which is going to produce more jobs in the manufacturing area for our people. So in the processing area, Tabasco is going to come in there. And then this other one, where we have now, the deal for the factory has already been signed. Well, the shell up there is already signed. I'm talking about the industrial park. And that is going forward for 2025. And I will make the announcement on that. So in business, sometimes some goes and some go, and we understand that. But while some going based on market forces, we are pulling some based on market forces. So we're not just sitting back and say, brush gone, nothing. Brush gone to come. One I have already announced, which is the Tabasco, and then the other one, which I will announce very soon. We are almost at the point where we're going to make the announcement.
Prime Minister, you referred to it, which is why I'm jumping in here. Over the last several weeks, you've put special emphasis on healthcare and what's happening with the new Climate Smart Hospital. There are people who have been saying that they see the land cleared, they see the machines there, but they're not seeing anything taking place above ground. So if you can provide some sort of update on that. And you also made reference to plans for the existing JNF. You had always said that the plan was never to abandon the existing hospital facility, but to expand the services offered there. So if you can provide some update and clarity on healthcare and the plans for healthcare based on the statements that you would have made in recent times.
Right. So with respect to healthcare, again, remember when Rankin used to ask about the St. Peter's Road, and I would say the engineering taking place. This is a case of that. The engineering and the planning and all of that taking place. So when they saw the machinery, it was doing the soil testing and all that. That can tell you how how you construct your building, how much floors you can go up if you want to go up floors and so forth. So all that is in process. So I can say the hospital is moving along well. You're going to eventually see the shovel in the ground, so to speak. We cleared the land, we tested the soil, we are in the final planning stages, consulting back and forth with the health officials to make sure we have the hospital. Over 400 people were consulted so that we have the hospital, which will name Jane France and which will remain in constituency number 3. So that is very much on its way. And as you said, we have, and I want to thank the Republic of China, Taiwan, our strong partner, Taiwan, because I know there are innuendos being spread by those who are talking about the CBI program and Chinese people that is somehow reflecting our relationship with Taiwan. We are a strong partner with Taiwan. I speak at the United Nations and I speak in favor of what Taiwan can contribute to the world's development. So that is not in question at all. The only person who has talked about having a relationship with another country is PLP, which is disappointing. But that is for another day with respect to that. So I want to thank the Republic of China, Taiwan, for their support on the hospital, and it's going forward. Just recently, their leaders from their companies, OECC and ODIC, or OIDC, rather, who are the companies that leading on this, they were here, and we had fruitful discussions. With respect to the present JNF, we are investing in it heavy, because when the JNF moves over, we want to convert that into a large polyclinic with other types of services. So where the Bastia Health Center now, because of the building. The building is intact, but they're telling us don't touch it, don't add anything, don't subtract anything, because of where it is. So we say, okay, we're going to have a beautiful building here, which we're investing in. We have stopped the leakage and so forth. We know that was not built for climate change per se, but at least we can use it in the meantime. But we are building this other one because we wanted a hospital that is resilient and resistant to climate change. And so that will become a major polyclinic within the Bastia area. Again, taking pressure off of JNF. So you'll have POCs, and you have Mary Charles, you have other clinics around, and we're going to now go into the concept of polyclinics, so that if you just want to take your blood pressure, you don't have to go to JNF. You can go to the polyclinic. If you want to test your sugar, you don't have to go to the hospital. Let real people who have real emergencies go to the JNF hospital. And if you just want to check and so forth, you should have a place to go to. And so that is why we want to create the concept of a polyclinic and extended hours. So when people come home from work, they can run to the polyclinic and, get a sugar test, get a blood pressure test, check their weight, do the thing that they have to do to maintain their health. So hopefully that will encourage other people to take advantage of our health services here.
Mr. Prime Minister, I have a few other questions, which will be my last questions for today.
Right.
But my last question with regards to the CBI. Mm-hmm. One of the issues that Mr. Martinez spoke about, and I think in the last roundtable, I also
But we should go answer that question on another topic sometime.
I have some other issues. But it's a serious thing. It's a serious thing, because what he's saying is that because of the way these Chinese companies that are involved with the jail project are set up, it lends itself to the potential of persons who are not honest to enter the program,
like Mr. Martinez himself,
and become a threat to.
So is he a threat?
And become a threat to the CBI program because of closer access that they will gain to the United States and to other countries.
I don't know. I don't know about.
Is this a real challenge in the program? And if so, how is the program addressing that issue?
Let me say from the onset that St. Kitts and Nevis, our ally, we know who we are. Our allies. I told you already. We're strongly with Taiwan. And the only party that had an official talk about anybody else was PLP. That is the threat. There's a serious threat to even entertain that with respect to bilateral relations. So I want to put that on the table. When we have our CBI program, our most important thing is to make sure that we have robust due diligence wherever we are in the world. And that is why we have the continued due diligence process. That is why, to some extent, we pause things, look at things, and even if you get admission into the program, to continue to do what you call continued due diligence, to make sure that we have all the mechanisms in place to detect anybody who would want to misuse our CBI program. That is how we look at it. People come into the CBI program as individuals, not as countries, as individuals. And so we investigate you as individuals. That is how we look at things. And you have to go through a vigorous process, and from time to time, we're going to take you back through a vigorous process called continued due diligence. That is how we were able to discover the situation. Sad to hear the former Prime Minister talking about it. And he was there and should have done all that he could have done to make sure that he protected the program.
In relation to structure that's very close by to where we are, I think it was supposed to be a police complex of some sort.
Yes.
Multi-million-dollar, very large complex, and it has been there abandoned now for many years. What is the plan to complete that building, and what purposes would it be used for? The other things, I remember some months ago, you also indicated to me that there were some plans in place for the Fort Thomas Hotel property. Are you in a position now to say a little bit more about what is going on there? And then lastly, the Frigate Bay Strip. On the Team Unity, a project was started, redevelopment of the area, which was going fine, but apparently there are some issues involved with regards to sewage, treatment. Has that been rectified? And is the project going to be completed? I think there was a boardwalk that was supposed to be installed. Is all of those things still in train?
Right. Let me say, Bart, I want to thank you. On the one with the project at Frigate Bay, I do not have all of the information on it. So I would not, all I know the project from the minister, when she reported to cabinet that they're seeking to move the project forward, I cannot give you details. So I would not make up on the spot. But what I think I can do is have the necessary persons, and I want the press secretary to take this note so that they can respond to you or send that information to me to get to you, right? Fair enough. On the Fort Thomas matter, there is a project initially to deal with the undermining because significantly undermined. So even before you can now move forward, you really want to deal with that. So we have a capital project that is, I think it went out for tender, and that is being finalized to afford the person who won the tender on that to start the work, to deal with the undermining, and then you'll be able to move forward with it. So that is our priority there at Fort Thomas, which I did not mention the last time. Now, this building was a building being funded by the European Union. I have met with the European Union. We have already done a reevaluation of the structure, so we have that study. So now we have done that. That is now indicating to us what we need to do to get it going. I can say that because it was exposed for so long, even before we got in office, that a lot of the steel and so forth, we know that they're affected. So some significant changes would have to take place as a result. Really, I'm sorry, that project should have been completed. That project should have really been completed. But we met it in a dilapidated state. We had to do a reevaluation, and that reevaluation is taking place, and there will be some loss as a result. But I want to thank the European Union for their input, and that should have been completed, I would say again. So that is where we are with it. So I know the commissioner had some input in it. The engineering, the reassessment by engineers have been done, and we are seeking to move forward. Yes.
What is it like to do this for?
Like a training center, partly a training center for persons in the security, national security, right? The personnel for development, for training, and not just locally, but regional training as well. That is the purpose. Yes. That's it.
Quickly, Mr. Prime Minister, this pretty much might be the last roundtable, before
for the year.
For the year.
Okay.
I know I'm gonna put you on a spot a little bit here, but is there any indication that a dividend might be paid, a possibility, or even some sort of salary or something? For those persons out there, stressing me on that question, I just want you to put it out there. Thank you. So you see, I'm not lying.
So
even Mr. Bart was
a lot of
asking.
folks are asking about it, but I when you look at a dividend, without we look at the numbers and then we make a determination based on the numbers. A dividend is given if there's a profit in anything. If you run a company, you make a profit, you share the profit among your shareholders, correct? So the dividend comes from the CBI. So we have to look and see, is there a profit from the CBI? And then we will determine if you'll give a dividend at that particular point. So a dividend is not something you give all the time, just like a bonus is not given all the time. It depends on the circumstances and how much you would have made. And it's always the thrust to give the workers as much and the people as much as you can. So that would have to be looked at. But let me say that we know that we took a hit with the CBI because of the changes we made. And then the CBI is paying for the main things in the country because of what happened as such. So you'll have, depends on your project, you might go up this year, might be a down this year, just because of the flow of things, just like business. And then based on that, we would do it. So we will look at to see if we made any extra from the CBI, and then we give that as a dividend. I will say again that the only government that has even contemplated a dividend from the CBI was this government. Each time we give the dividend, it costs the government about the independence we said costs us about $60-something million. Each dividend costs us about around $30 million. If you add them up, it's $120 million that we share back with the people. The only country to have done that. No other country did that. And we are the first administration to do that, to share what we had made extra, so to speak, with the people. And so I'm very proud of that track record. But again, I will say to the people, it depends on how the CBI would have performed. And that is why it irks me, as we say in St. Kitts and Nevis, when you see people trying to destroy the CBI program, understanding how critical. You can on one hand say you care about the CBI program and it's and this and that, and then on the other hand, you're doing actions to destroy it and lying and so forth and doing all sorts of things for your own personal gain. That is where it can make sense. You can have your cake and eat it too. That is why I'm saying people are being disingenuous, apart from the lies, of course, speak for themselves. But that is to answer your ranking and that particular one. So that is how it is determined at the end of the day.
It would be remiss of me if I did not ask this question, despite all that you have said this morning, because a number of persons have been asking me to ask you, and I think I will ask you the question so that you can be very clear about it. It's about the double salary. There are people who, despite the fact that the salaries were raised and the dividend has been put in place and whatever, they're still asking if a double salary is going to be paid this Christmas period.
Right. So I want to thank you for your question, and I take it as a very serious question. If you look at the thrust of this administration, we gave a lot of financial support. We are inclined to give as much financial support as we can at any given point. We paid dividend. We paid independence reset. We actually paid double salary as well. We gave honorarium. We increased salary, increased minimum wage, give pension to the GAE workers. Just when and the Aspire program, where each child between 5 and 18 will receive $1,000. And let me give you some update on that. Since we are in the talking about monies, let me tell you how many persons have applied thus far. Okay. Yeah. Okay, let me get it. Okay, let me go and look at this one with, okay, good, Aspire. So far, Aspire, from the dashboard I was sent today, we now have applicants 1,710 and approved applications, because I go through the process, 501. A total of 367 accounts are now built and seeded, which means the money was deposited to the tune of $367,000. So I can clearly say that 367 young people, because we have now started to populate and the accounts, now have $1,000 in their accounts. And then what we will do is savings, and then we will now invest in shares in the companies. And what we are saying to our young people is that we want you to start building your financial empire from now. Let me tell you why I do it. I know you want to ask a follow-up question back, but give me 1 second in this one, because I'm going to come to you. Yeah, no problem. So the reason why we have done this, there's no place in the Western Hemisphere that does this. Why we have done this? Because you go from generation to generation. And it's like in recycling. You know, you do education so that people can escape poverty and so forth. But I think what is also needed, and we think that is all what is also needed, is financial education. But not only financial education, but to give our people opportunities to invest in local companies and also to learn how to save. And attached to this will be financial education. This will be a game changer. I believe it because they practice it to a smaller level in certain areas, and those who benefit, they have a better chance of establishing a solid financial empire. That is why I want this for every child in St. Kitts and Nevis, irrespective of their parental background. Whether they labor, PLP, PAM, whoever, whether they live McKnight or Burdock, whatever the case may be, our people must have the opportunity to have the best financial life that they can have. And you do that through education and then giving them resources so that they can build over time. And that is why we brought the Aspire program, a critical program to transform our people so that we can end the cycles of poverty, in the pockets of poverty that we have. We need to end them. And the education, I think, is the fundamental part of it, and it would add significantly in ending it. So I wanted to say that. So I say all, so I don't want people. So if you look at it, we have been an administration that have given significant financial support. I say all of that to show that we are really leaning towards giving as much financial support. That is why we have given the most financial support in the whole of the Caribbean. And maybe the Western Hemisphere by per capita. It's very possible by the whole Western Hemisphere, from all the way up north to way down south. When you look at all of these support, all the support that we're giving to our people. And so normally in a year when you do a raise, that year on tradition is not a year when you do the double salary because of what, the balancing things. So we looked at it. We say an increase is critically important and so forth. And again, I would always say that we are inclined to give as much financial support as possible. And then when the final evaluation is done, as with anything else, then you decide what is your next step. So even though that has been done traditionally, I'm not saying that we will not look at it, but it is critically important to note why that is done, that in the year of an increase is not the year when you do a double salary as well.
Thank you, Prime Minister. At this point, we'll move straight into your closing remarks before, which will lead us to wrap up this dialogue.
Yes. So I want to thank you very much, Press Secretary, and to thank the press. Mr. Batters, we're back and forth sometimes on the questions. That's how it is, right? That's how it is. In any way, you go and you meet officials and the press. That's what the conversation is about, okay? So that's what it's about, really. So I appreciate you and appreciate you as well and all of you. Because this is without you can't have a democracy. I know that. Whether we agree on everything else or whether how I feel or you feel. I'm saying that we are a democracy functions like that. And so without you. Of course. Yeah. Yeah, exactly. Good. So I appreciate exactly that you ask, and your credibility is important. And remember that you help to keep the people informed. Because you ask the question, I'm sure people send you a question. They may not get to ask me, and you have a right to ask me those questions. You have a right to say, somebody stop me and ask this question and you think is important. That is fine, because you're supposed to bring the sentiments of the people, the questions of the people to this as well. And so I would like to say that this government continues to work tirelessly hard on behalf of the people. We will continue to support our people as much as possible. And from time to time, I will say what the government has done, because it's important that we say what we have done for our people, so that the people can be informed as well. Because sometimes things are done and it is not recognized. So we launch a new part of our website, which you can go on, where you can go on to the government's website and see all of the things under the 7 pillars that the government has achieved thus far. But just to go through a number of things, development bank revitalization, I didn't get into that today, but we have been able to revitalize the development bank. Again, the banks should be protected as much as possible. If the banks fail, everything else fails. In the sense that the whole They're part of the foundation of your financial system. Social security stability. We had to make sure that we stabilize social security and we turn it around significantly. I spoke to the efforts today and we are seeing an increase in the levy, for example. That means jobs are being created, because the levy does not go up unless you create jobs. We see an increase. We saw an increase. We saw a surplus last year. We're seeing a surplus this year as well. But there needs to be social security form. So we have stabilized social security. We have stabilized development bank. And that is where we had to pump a lot of our money. We have reformed CBI, critically important. We have the economic achievements and support. We have given support to our citizens through all of the things that I have mentioned. We have invested in water infrastructure. And we are moving to invest in renewable energy infrastructure as well. We spoke about the dividend, the minimum wage, GAE pension. And the GAE pension, I don't want to just rush over that. Do you know that a lot of these ladies especially, and men who were the security guards or the crossing guards, they had no pension. They work in the government and they had no pension. When we went back to look at the file was so empty. It's almost as if people didn't regard them. We have given them a pension and we have backdated the pension to January of 2024. That's a significant improvement for those who are the minimum wage workers of our country, that we give them a pension so that they can have a better life. We have increased the minimum wage to one of the highest in the Caribbean, and next year is going to be the highest in the Caribbean, period. Significant improvement. You're giving a minimum wage at that level, and we want to educate our people so that whatever resources they have, they know how to use it wisely. And it will be the highest in the region. I think it's the highest now, or very close to the highest, but it will definitely be the highest next year. Then we have the Aspire program, where every child, regardless of where they come from, will have a chance to build their economic empire. And if they live in poverty, a better chance with education to escape poverty. This is a next step of a labor administration to lift our people out of poverty. Because labor is a movement that takes you from cradle till you go on to your creator. That is what we are about. I also want to mention Keon. I want to say that we restore Keon High School. I want to say I got the word late last week that Keon High School is now free of mold. We invested hundreds of thousands of dollars there. And right now, Keon High School, as per testing by the scientists, is free of mold. And I'm very proud of that. It is a school that had been neglected for too long. And we invested heavily. I want to also say that Keon had been a place where water was scarce. And now Keon is probably one of the places where you have close to 24/7 water, 24/7 water, if not 24/7. It will go from time to time because those things happen nonetheless. But we have been able to invest heavily in water in Keon and brought it back. And so I want to say that this administration has been working on behalf of the people and will continue to work on the behalf of the people. And wherever there are opportunities to support the people, financially or otherwise, we are going to do it. And then we are going to search for opportunities to help us to support our people more. And so I want to say to all people, to thank them for their support, to thank them for basically making sure that St. Kitts and Nevis, go to be #1. We are now #1 in CARICOM as far as Human Development Index is concerned. That's a significant, we passed Bahamas and Barbados. So that's a significant improvement. But we'll continue to work and we'll continue to listen to the people. The voice of the people is critical to listen to. So that as we implement what we implement, we want these things to benefit our people. I will say that there are challenges. I'm not going to pretend that people don't have challenges. I'm not living in oblivion. I didn't grow up rich. I know how it goes sometimes. That is why you see me pushing for the Aspire program. Because children who grow up in poor families sometimes don't have a real chance to build an economic foundation. That is why you see me give GAE workers, because these are the least paid. They need more support. This is why you see me pushing so much for an increase in the minimum wage. So that when you have a wage, it is better than just a passive passing of money, because a wage means more pension. If you get sick, more sick leave. Nobody can just take it away from you if you're working. that is embedded in your benefit. That is why labor movements from centuries ago fight for increase or improve working conditions. And one of those is the improvement of your remuneration, because they understand that that is critically important as well. And so we are moving along. But I am not going to not recognize that there are challenges. Inflation is a challenge. Not going to pretend. And so we continue to work as hard as we can to subsidize or give financial support where we can to help our people through these challenges. But all is not perfect. I will never say it's perfect. But if you were to compare us to our neighbors, we are really moving in the right direction. And so I want to wrap up by saying to our people, thank you very much for tuning in and listening. And let's continue to build a better St. Kitts and Nevis as we power progress. Take care.